They said humanity was extinct. The galaxy's greatest lie was about to be exposed. Admiral Kane stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The readings had to be wrong. The sensors showed ships approaching the Empire's outer border, but these vessels should not exist. Their design matched nothing in the galactic database. Nothing living, anyway. "We're receiving a transmission, sir," his communications officer reported, voice trembling. Kane's blood turned to ice as words crackled through the static. Words in a language that had been banned for centuries, a language that belonged to the dead. "We are humanity. Surrender or be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew the legends. Every child in the galaxy had heard the whispered stories. But legends were just stories. The dead could not return. They were wrong. Long ago, the stars held secrets. Ancient beings ruled the galaxy before any human ever looked up at the night sky. Across space, many different species lived and fought. Each had their own history and legends. But one story was different from all the rest. This was the tale of humans. The other species whispered about them in dark corners. They said humans were so dangerous and violent that all records of them had been destroyed. Some believed humans had destroyed themselves in a great war. Others thought they had fled to unknown parts of space. But their memory lived on, as a warning about what happens when power goes too far. For hundreds of years, these stories became myths. The great empires laughed at them. They thought humans were just scary tales told to young civilizations. After all, if such beings had existed, they were gone now. But the dead have a way of coming back when you least expect them. The first sign of humanity's return was not a grand announcement or a declaration of war. It was a single, impossible word whispered across the void. A word that made the galaxy's blood run cold. Hello. Then the fleet appeared. The Galactic Empire had ruled without challenge for thousands of years. They controlled hundreds of star systems. Their ships were the strongest in the galaxy. Their weapons were far ahead of everyone else. When their sensors found something strange at the edge of their space, they thought it was just pirates or a lost colony ship. They sent one battleship to destroy whatever was there. The crew laughed when they saw the old-looking vessels. The ships were made of rough metal and looked like they had been in many battles. They seemed ancient compared to the Empire's sleek warships. The Empire ship sent a message with the pride of a species that had never lost a war. They demanded identification. They ordered the strange vessels to submit to inspection. The answer came back in a language the Empire had tried to erase from existence, a language that belonged to ghosts. "We are humanity. Give up or be destroyed." For a moment, the universe held its breath. Then Admiral Kane laughed. It was impossible. A joke. Some rebel faction using old recordings to frighten them. His laughter died in his throat as the first human ship opened fire. The Empire Admiral could not believe it. Humans were just stories. They were supposed to be extinct. But as his sensors studied the approaching ships, fear began to grow in his heart. These old ships moved with perfect skill. Their weapons were ready. Their formation was flawless. He pushed away his fear. The Empire had crushed many enemies before. With one command, he ordered his ship to destroy the human fleet. That was his final mistake. The human ships moved faster than they should have been able to. They dodged the Empire's fire like ghosts. Their weapons looked old compared to the Empire's technology, but they worked perfectly. The first Empire ship went dark in seconds. Another exploded as an ancient but deadly missile hit its core. The great battleship barely had time to call for help before railguns tore through its bridge. The battle lasted less than an hour. The humans did not lose a single ship. News spread quickly across the galaxy. The impossible had happened. The myths were real. The monsters had returned, and they were coming. The Empire sent more ships, bigger fleets, entire armadas. Nothing worked. The humans fought like demons with brutal skill that made no sense. They used tactics the Empire had never seen before. They did not want to talk or make deals. They wanted revenge for crimes forgotten by time. As stars burned and worlds shook with fear, one message echoed across space. It was carried by the wreckage of every Empire fleet that dared to fight them. Written in the twisted metal of 1,000 destroyed ships, humanity has returned, and they remembered everything. The Empire, once the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, now felt something they had never known before: fear. Reports came in from every corner of their domain. Entire fleets wiped out, colonies turned to ash. Their empire was falling apart under the endless attack of an enemy they had dismissed as a myth. At the heart of the empire, Supreme Leader Marcus stood in his war room. Around him were his top commanders. Holograms showed the same terrible truth everywhere. Human warships striking like ghosts, leaving only destruction behind. "This cannot be happening," Admiral Kane muttered. "These creatures are from the past. Their technology is ancient. Their ships are crude. How are they winning?" Marcus turned to his intelligence officer, Sarah, whose shaking hands showed her terror. "What do we know about them?" he demanded. Sarah hesitated. "Not much. All records of humans were destroyed long ago. What little remains suggests they were tough and warlike. But this," she pointed at the destruction before them, "this is beyond anything we imagined. Maybe they were never really gone," another general whispered. "Maybe they have been waiting and preparing for this moment." The words sent chills through the room. The idea that humanity had not vanished but had been hiding in space, building their strength, was more frightening than any weapon. "Enough guessing," Marcus snapped. "How do we stop them?" Silence. No one had an answer. The war was unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. They had fought many enemies before: rebel planets, rival empires, pirate groups. But those foes had followed the same rules of war. The humans did not. They fought without honor, striking without warning. They refused to negotiate or accept surrender. They attacked supply lines, shipyards, and fuel depots. They were fighting a total war, something the Empire had never seen. And worst of all, they seemed to be getting stronger. The first human fleet had been small, but new warships appeared every day. Where were they coming from? How had they built so many ships in secret? The Empire's spies had no answers. Then humanity did something truly terrifying. They took their first planet. The Empire had assumed humans were just raiders who would strike and disappear. But when the industrial world of Kepler fell, it became clear. Humanity was not just here for revenge. They were here to conquer. Survivors from the planet told stories of human soldiers unlike any the Empire had seen. They fought in powered armor, moved like shadows, and never left a single Empire soldier alive. The cities of Kepler burned for weeks. When the fires died, the human flag flew over the ruins. A new empire was rising, and the galaxy would never be the same. Panic spread through the Empire like wildfire. Kepler was the first world to fall, but it would not be the last. Human fleets struck deep into Empire space, taking planets with terrifying speed. Worlds that had been under Empire rule for centuries now burned with human fire. Marcus could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was not just winning, they were destroying the Empire piece by piece. He called for an emergency meeting of a High Council. "We must use our biggest warships," Admiral Torres argued. "Their fleet is powerful, but they cannot match our capital ships." "We already sent our biggest ships," Sarah countered, her voice shaking. "They were destroyed." Gasps filled the room. "How?" Marcus growled. Sarah took a deep breath. "We underestimated them. Their ships may be old, but their technology has evolved in ways we never expected. Their weapons bypass our shields. Their tactics are unlike anything we have faced." "What do they want?" one council member demanded. Sarah hesitated before answering. "Revenge." Silence. Then the room erupted in shouts. "This is madness. We are the Empire. Surely they can be reasoned with." "No. They will not stop until we are extinct." Marcus raised his hand for silence. "If it is revenge they seek, then we will show them why the Empire has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We will burn their worlds and hunt them to the last soldier." But even as he spoke, The words felt empty. The Empire had always won because they had always been stronger. But for the first time, they faced an enemy that was not afraid. For humanity, this war was not about conquest or power. It was something deeper. It was personal. Deep in space, beyond the reach of known systems, a new fleet was gathering. Humanity had returned, and they were just getting started. The Empire's war machine roared to life. Across their domain, shipyards worked without rest. Recruitment centers overflowed as soldiers were pressed into service. The Empire had faced rebellions and rival empires before, but never an enemy like this. And still, the humans advanced. The war was not fought on equal terms. The Empire believed in control and discipline. The humans fought with chaos and unpredictability. A single human fleet could appear from nowhere, hit a supply convoy, and disappear before the Empire could react. Then came the ground war. Human soldiers were unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. Empire troops relied on drones and automated warfare to minimize their own losses. But humans fought in the mud, in the ruins, in the streets. They did not rely on machines to fight for them. They were the weapons. The worst were the human shock troops. They did not just kill Empire soldiers. They hunted them. They adapted and learned weaknesses faster than any enemy the Empire had faced. A single Empire battalion could be wiped out in one night by a handful of human operatives. The Empire's leadership scrambled to understand. They were the dominant force in the galaxy. They had ruled unchallenged for centuries. What had they done to deserve this war? Then they found the truth. Deep in the restricted archives, buried under centuries of classified information, Marcus uncovered a dark secret. The humans had not vanished from history. They had been erased. Long ago, before the Empire had risen to power, their ancestors had encountered humanity, a young, ambitious race expanding rapidly and mastering warfare faster than any species before them. They were a threat not because they were evil, but because they were relentless. So the Empire's ancestors had made a decision. They had committed genocide. They had destroyed entire human worlds, burned colonies to the ground, and wiped every record of their existence. They had hunted the survivors to the edges of the galaxy, believing they had killed them all. But they had not. Somehow, humanity had survived. And now, after centuries in the shadows, they had returned, not as conquerors, but as executioners. The realization struck Marcus like a death blow. The war was not a war, it was a reckoning. The humans were not here to expand or dominate. They were here to settle an ancient debt written in blood and fire, one that the Empire had forgotten, but humanity had never forgiven. A sudden alarm broke the heavy silence. An emergency transmission flickered to life. The face of Admiral Kane appeared, his expression showing disbelief and panic. "They are here," he said, his voice hollow. Marcus straightened. "Where?" Kane swallowed hard. "Here, on Prime. Impossible." The humans were still on the outer colonies. They should not have been able to reach the Empire's capital so quickly, but they had. A second alarm blared. Tactical naps filled the war chamber, showing red markers descending from space like vengeful spirits. Human warships, larger and deadlier than expected, had bypassed the outer defenses completely. They were not here to fight another battle. They were here to end the war. The skies over Prime turned to fire as the first human dropships descended. Anti-air defenses roared to life, but it was too late. The humans had planned this assault with the precision of a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. Stealth ships had already taken control of orbital defense platforms and turned them against the Empire's own fleet. Empire warships exploded in orbit, raining molten debris onto their own cities. On the ground, panic erupted. Citizens flooded the streets, watching in horror as their once invincible empire collapsed. The Empire's soldiers, raised to believe in their superiority, now trembled as human strike teams emerged from the smoke. The humans fought like demons. They struck vital infrastructure first, crippling power grids and communications. Within hours, entire districts were plunged into darkness. Marcus stood in his war room, watching the nightmare unfold. His admirals screamed at one another, issuing desperate orders. It did not matter. The Empire was losing. No, humanity had already won. Before the final order could be given, the doors burst open. A figure stepped inside, flanked by two human soldiers in black armor. Marcus recognized him instantly from the old archives. One of the last survivors. A descendant of the massacred race. A human. The man walked forward, his helmet under one arm, his eyes filled with something worse than hatred. Certainty. "Oh, what do you want?" Marcus asked. The human smiled. "Justice." Outside, the Empire burned. Crime fell in a single night. For centuries, the Empire had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip, but in the end, none of that mattered. Humanity had not come as conquerors or diplomats. They had come as executioners, delivering a long overdue sentence. The war did not end with negotiations or peace treaties. It ended with silence. By dawn, the Empire's high command was gone. Marcus, his admirals, his war ministers, all executed. The humans did not spare them or offer mercy. The judgment had been passed centuries ago. This was merely the sentence being carried out. Across the galaxy, every Empire-controlled planet received the same transmission. A human commander stood before the camera, clad in dark battle-worn armor. His face was calm, his voice steady. There was no joy in his words, only finality. The Empire is no more. Your leaders, her fleets, are gone. Your empire has fallen. For centuries you ruled through fear. You erased our history. You tried to erase us. And yet, here we stand. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. But we do understand justice. The screen showed images of surrendered Empire soldiers being led away in chains. The humans had not wiped them out completely. Those who had not resisted, those who had no hand in the genocide, would be spared. But they would never roll again. We do not seek to replace you. We are not here to build an empire. We have reclaimed what was stolen from us. Nothing more. The galaxy is free from empire tyranny. What happens next is up to you. The transmission ended, and with it, an era. The Empire's collapse sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Worlds that had been under its rule for centuries found themselves free for the first time. Some rejoiced, others fell into chaos. Rival species scrambled to fill the power vacuum, but none dared to challenge the humans. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had survived extinction, and they had returned not as conquerors, but as the galaxy's final judgment.